Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Friday to you guys. Hope you've had a wonderful week. The tropics are staying busy as our first tropical storm of the season formed and moved into Mexico yesterday. That was Alberto. We've got a couple more areas to watch here through the weekend, and I don't think we're done after that. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also look at the threat for severe weather, flooding, and heavy rain. As well as high temperatures across portions of the mid-Atlantic into parts of the South here as we head into the end of the month of June. So very active weather to talk about here. The spring was super active with tornadoes. Now the tropics are pretty active. The heat is building and things are just slow to move. So lots of rain falling in some of the same places, causing us some problems as well. Here's a look at what we're looking at in the tropics. More storms on the horizon. We do have an Invest 92L that has a chance still of becoming a depression or a low-end storm here before making landfall near the Florida-Georgia line here overnight tonight. Interestingly, models now showing it getting kicked back out here early next week. Maybe a small chance it could survive. But not a major storm at this point, just a rainmaker. A new storm is set to form here in the same place that Alberto formed as we get into the western Gulf of Mexico this weekend, but that is going to be a short-lived storm as well. And then conditions look to be favorable for potentially a third system. Now, most of the action is on the Atlantic side right now, very quiet in the Pacific as well as across the pond here across the western Pacific. In fact, it's been an extremely quiet start to the tropical season. That is probably not going to last, but that's where we're at right now. Here's a look at the wide view of the tropics, and you can see things are most active here over the Gulf and Caribbean. Our gyre continues to circulate here over Central America. Here's our weak system that is heading towards Florida. Still showing signs of life, but running out of space here. And then the rest of the Atlantic, for the time being, unfavorable for development. We've got a few waves coming across, but not surviving. We have a large trough over the subtropics, and then very stable air coming down across the eastern Atlantic, which is pretty common for June, believe it or not. We just don't see much coming that far east here for at least another month. Here's a closer look at the Caribbean infrared, and you can see large circulation here. Let me get my pen back out. Large circulation across the Caribbean here and across Central America. Here's our gyre. And another piece of that getting ready to move off of the Mexican Yucatan Peninsula and head across the southwestern Gulf. Not a big threat to the U.S., but we may see moisture increasing here by early next week across South Texas. On the edge, you see our Invest. I'm going to zoom into that in just a second. And then we continue to have some pulses going into the gyre. So another system may try to get its act together here in about a week. It'll be running into land, but something to keep an eye on here towards the beginning of July. Again, certainty level on that not going to be super high, but something we're going to be watching for you. Here's a look at the Western Atlantic, and you can see Invest 92L gaining a little bit of strength here. We do have a plane getting ready to fly into it. It already left Biloxi, Keesler Air Force Base, should be getting in here after 8 o'clock Eastern time after my video goes out. But we still have a chance to see maybe Tropical Depression 2, and if we're super ambitious, Tropical Storm Beryl. Really not much of a wind maker, just watching this concentrated area thunderstorms as it moves closer to Florida and Georgia here with that heavy rain spreading onshore today into tonight. So it's actually going to be a beneficial storm. Not one that's taking up as much space as Alberto did, but one that's taking up about this much space. So certainly not the big kid on the block here. Over the Central America, over the Central Atlantic. Yes, it's been a long week. You can see things are in pretty good shape right now. Just a few systems moving across from east to west, but nothing getting north of 10, nothing that looks like it's going to develop. And same goes for the far east Atlantic. Waves moving across Africa, that is common this time of the year, but very stable air awaiting it as it gets to near the Cape Verdes. We should not see any development. Here's a look at the Gulf of Mexico. I want to show you how this is shaping up here. And we can see there is an upper level trough in here, kind of an upper level low, which moved by just south of Florida yesterday into the middle of the Gulf. On the western side of it, we have the influence of much drier air aloft on the western side of this. And yes, my keyboard's in the way, so my lines are not straight. But a lot of dry air in place here is going to keep this from trying to form too quickly. But what will happen is that dry air is going to get pushed off to the north and west. So we have a dry start to the weekend across the northern Gulf Coast region. And then what will happen is we should see a circulation form in here. And the challenge it's going to run into is it's only going to have about a day or two to even try to do something over the Gulf before it moves inland. It may be another situation where it gets in close and does try to pop into a tropical storm or a high-end depression, but it just doesn't have a lot of time to develop. So again, the story continues to be heavy rain for the places that they needed the rain long term, but now they're getting more than they prayed for. Let's just put it that way. We're talking the Yucatan, we're talking Central America, southeastern Mexico. These places are going to get crushed with more heavy rain. Jamaica's kind of missing out, but you will see a few showers and storms. And western Cuba and the Caymans remain very wet. Here's our other feature here. You can see it's just completely surrounded by dry air. That's why it can't grow. The outflow is just getting choked off and killed off. But it is a mighty little system and still has a possibility of developing here in the short term. It's over warm water. It's got less than 24 hours to even try to do something, but it still has that opportunity. So for now, 2 orange areas, medium chances of development in the next 7 days. In this case, we're talking in the next 2 days. 50% right here with AL92. And for at least through Sunday morning at 2 in the morning, we're looking at a 40% chance of something forming in the Southwest Gulf. That climbs to 60% really during the day on Sunday after 2 a.m. So that's what we're looking at. The European ensembles show kind of our area here that has a chance of forming. Completely ignores the system off the coast of Florida because a lot of the ensembles just aren't even really picking up on it. And then kind of a phantom area that probably isn't going to form in the Southwest Caribbean. But if you give it a little bit of time, you will see it is heading kind of in the exact same position as where the last 2 have formed. And the time frame on potential development is going to be right at the very end of June and very beginning of July. So right now, because that's 9-10 days away, we don't have a lot of support for it, but we do have some signs that something may try to form. The other place we're going to have to watch is off the southeast coast. We've got a front that is scheduled to move off the coast at the end of next week, and waters are still warm in here, relatively untouched. We may see something weak try to get going over the Gulf Stream. So the areas to watch, at least in the short term, are here today, here over the weekend, and then this area comes into the same spot at the very end of the month of June. And that's probably it for at least the next 10 days or so. Here's a closer look at what is popping up here off of the coast of Florida. And again, you can see kind of underneath this. Let me get my pen back out. You can see there's a very small center underneath this. And we've got some thunderstorm activity with tropical storm force gusts up here. And we've got thunderstorms firing on the southwestern side. So it is basically a depression or low-end storm now. The only thing that has kept it from being upgraded is that the core of the system is not well enough defined. Now, a plane is on its way. If it finds there's enough of a circulation with enough wind speed, this thing will get classified here today. In fact, this morning. About a coin flip at this point, and I just can't tell you if that's going to happen or not because I don't fly the planes and I'm not in there right now. But the satellite is showing kind of some improvement at least. So where it would go is towards the Georgia-Florida line here in less than 24 hours. We're looking at about midnight tonight, early in the morning on Saturday, and then slowing and turning to the right. And the remains of it are going to be over the Carolinas, producing some rain this weekend. And then, believe it or not, there's a slight chance this thing tries to hold on or reform east of the Outer Banks as we get into Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. But it's already heading away at that point and not a threat to land. Intensity forecasts are not impressive here. Keeping it below tropical storm strength, just 1 or 2 outliers that may try to fire it east of North Carolina here as we get to about Tuesday of next week, but that's already moving away. Here's a look at the NAM showing you guys where the winds are going to be gustiest to the north of the center. Generally speaking, wind gusts 30, 40, maybe 47 miles per hour, but primarily over open waters. As this system moves in tonight, you can see there's just no increase in winds, just a little breezy at the coast. Really, the story here is going to be the rain. Here's a look at a blend of all the models showing us where that rain is going to fall heaviest. And you can see this afternoon, northeast Florida with the southern blob, we may see an inch or locally even more. North of the center, not a lot this afternoon or evening. As we head into tomorrow, though, the potential to see maybe an inch or so of rain, places like Chatham and Glynn County here in Georgia, maybe even sneaking up into South Carolina. And then there will be more moisture coming in behind this system Sunday and Monday, but that is not directly going to be from this system. It'll just be from the ridge breaking down and sending some of that Gulf and Caribbean moisture northward. So Florida could still have a wet weekend, but not going to be from 92L. more likely it'll just be from tropical flow that comes in out of the south. Same goes for next week. Florida, you're going to see some areas that could see some pockets of heavy rainfall. The places that need it the most, unfortunately, are in here, and they are going to be kind of ripped off again, but we do have some hope there'll still be some heavy rain as we get towards the coastline here, Florida, Georgia, maybe South Carolina. Looking farther north, kind of the same deal here. If you're in the Piedmont Triad or Raleigh or Elizabeth City or the Tidewater, you get by pretty much dry this weekend. Most of the rain activity is over the Gulf Stream waters. We will see some showers sneaking up onto the coast, maybe a heavier thunderstorm in there. But again, we're not talking about, if we talk about a tropical storm barrel hitting the coast, it is not going to be the same deal as what Alberto was in Texas or even Louisiana here a few days ago. This is a piddly storm. It's just going to bring a little bit more of a surge in moisture, which we do need. And other than that, we're looking at the mountains and things that come across from west to east into our ridge of high pressure. Here's the GFS model. And again, you can see as we head to tomorrow morning, very minor circulation here, a little bit of a weakness aloft here, really just a couple of pulses of moisture heading in this direction. Here's our next system forming. 1,003 millibars would be a little bit higher than what the last one was, but we may possibly see a depression by this time tomorrow morning in the southwestern Gulf heading in this general direction. You can see the difference with this is the size is big, but it's not as big as Alberto. In fact, there's a lot of dry air coming down here. These brown colors indicate drying aloft, and that is in the way, keeping this from sending moisture northward like Alberto did last week. So if you're in this area, you're going to be staying in the dry staying with dry conditions here over the next several days. Here's the next little feature that comes through. It kind of follows. You can see just the moisture kind of reloads here as we move this along into next week. We see maybe another push coming into the southwestern Gulf. You can kind of see this lowering pressure near Belize next Sunday. We also take a look at a front that's going to be moving off the coast of the Carolinas, and there's a window for a couple more weaker systems to form. You can kind of see a circulation here just to the south and east of Bermuda on July 2nd. We're watching lowering pressure in here right now. Maybe something minor tries to sneak in. Again, these systems are a pain in the butt to forecast because they form right at the coast and move inland, and it's just a coin flip at this point. Regardless, that moisture is heading in, and we're going to see more heavy rain in Mexico and Central America. Regardless, we're going to see this front dropping down into the southeast and hanging out. So there is hope for some rain in here. But unfortunately, with people doing outdoor things at the beginning of July, as you would expect, this could certainly spoil some of those outdoor plans. And then we see this push of moisture heading up into Florida. So this is 10, 12 days away. We still have some time. Here's a Canadian model showing our very weak system kind of hovering at the coast, a little bit better defined system in the Gulf here over the weekend. This is by this time tomorrow morning. It looks like we have a depression. If this is correct, it kind of does a loop and then moves inland by early Monday morning. Our other feature here kind of climbs up the coast and just remains extremely weak. May try to get going by the time it leaves here Monday night, Tuesday over the Gulf Stream, where water temperatures are over 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And then as we head past that, you can see a little bit quieter period, but we start to see kind of another piece coming across Central America next weekend. And the Canadian model is kind of an outlier, but does show some potential for development next weekend. It also shows this weak system near Bermuda. So at least for the next 2 weeks, we definitely have more potential systems, but nothing that looks like it's going to get too strong. So kind of some good news, bad news there. We're kind of wasting a few names, but we are certainly going to see some more action as we head into July. Here's a look at the United States, and you can see the same areas that have been getting hit with heavy storms are going to get it again today. We've got storms moving across lower Canada, heading into New England. We've got a pretty intense trough that's moved across the Western U.S., chilly across this area again this morning, hot across this area and here the next several days. The worst of the heat is going to be the mid-Atlantic region here. We've got the remains of Alberto have moved across Mexico, heading out this direction into cool water, not going to do anything. And then we see this upper level feature over the Gulf, which is going to head west, and moisture will follow it. Here's our feature off the Florida-Georgia coast, and an upper level low spinning just to the north of it as well. So a lot of small pictures crowding the map, a lot of small pieces of the puzzle crowding the map here and we've got to kind of track each one of those. Here's a look at our hazards map. You see a lot of green. We have flood watches and warnings here in the upper Midwest. The four corners are getting an increase in moisture. We still have heat in the Southwest with advisories and heat warnings. And then I will zoom in here and show you guys kind of the Mid-Atlantic Northeast region that has an early season heat wave in progress. Excessive heat warning for northwestern Ohio, eastern Indiana, and the Pittsburgh area. We've got an excessive heat watch as we get to the weekend for much of the Mid-Atlantic area, Northern Virginia, Panhandle of West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, much of New Jersey, and eastern Pennsylvania, and a heat advisory surrounding that. The heat advisory is there for today. Heat indices getting to about 100, but they'll get up to about 105 over the weekend in the area circled in pink today, and over the weekend in the area circled in red. It sounds confusing. There's a lot of it, but I will kind of break down where that heat's going to be. We do have a moderate risk for flooding again over the Dakotas and Minnesota and Iowa. You can kind of see that better on here. A slight risk for flooding in the Four Corners region, but I do think we are going to see a few areas that really do get hit hard here today and tomorrow. Take a look at tomorrow. 20 million Americans have a risk for flooding in the slight risk, over 60 million in the marginal. That does include Chicago up into Michigan as we stay pretty wet. And then looking at the day on Sunday, that threat shifts into parts of northern New England, southeast Canada. A smaller population in the U.S., but we still have people that could get hit with very heavy rain. Severe weather threat today, not quite as high, but we do see potentially severe weather over Pennsylvania, New York, western New England, back to Detroit. As we head to the day tomorrow, kind of the same areas are under the gun again, and really the same for Sunday, but that will extend southward. We may see severe weather back into Kentucky, Tennessee, down into Virginia, West Virginia during the day on Sunday. I do think a slight risk is coming somewhere in here, but tough to say where yet until the models agree on things. I will show you the Midwest in a minute here, but first, here's a look at the forecast radar for today. Mainly scattered showers and storms, but they do have the potential to produce some intense wind gusts briefly, some microbursts with them. Heavy rain continues tonight across northern New England, where it'll be much cooler. And then here comes the next wave tomorrow. We'll see heating of the day, storms popping up across this area, followed by heavier rain moving across portions of Ontario. And that rain is going to move into a broader area of the Northeast during the day on Sunday. Rain totals here over the next few days are going to start piling up, especially on the Canadian side here, but New England, 1 to 2 inches of rain expected through the weekend. Lesser amounts here over Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the Mid-Atlantic. We really need it in Virginia and Maryland, but we aren't going to see that much rain coming from this particular system. In the Midwest, you are done with seeing rain, I'm sure, in this area. You're done with seeing severe weather, but unfortunately, the pattern is not going to flip anytime soon until we get later into this weekend. So we may see a few tornadoes, strong winds across this area, and certainly some hail. The Four Corners area is also going to be at risk for severe weather today. Tomorrow, quieting down for the most part. Nebraska on north and west. Staying busy, though, across Iowa, Missouri, western and northern Illinois, as well as much of Wisconsin, and also sneaking up into Michigan as well. And then that front moves away, and our chance for storms does lessen on Sunday. Should be a quieter and cooler day for most of the area. Here's a look at the upper Midwest, and you will see rain continues to drench portions of Minnesota, storms firing up in Wisconsin. And take a look at this afternoon. It's going to be active here across this region later in the afternoon hours. As we head to the evening, those storms are going to push off to the east and weaken some, but the heavy rain threat continues at night. So travel tonight discouraged in the areas that are going to be in the flash flood warnings, especially because it's dark and you just can't see the depth of those waters. Tomorrow, we see a little more push of things here. Finally, things are starting to leave the area, but they are going to be moving fast enough where we do have some severe thunderstorm warnings that do get caused, or not do get caused, that do pop up at a faster rate. All right, I'm going to learn to talk. Sorry about that. As we head to tomorrow night, things are going to clear the Chicago area and eventually the Detroit area, and we are expecting to see more storms firing across the Ohio River region as we get to the day on Sunday. Potential rainfall totals are looking pretty high here. 3 inches around the Twin Cities, 2 to 3 around Sioux Falls. Significant rain as well for Wisconsin and Michigan. But unfortunately, as we get down into the eastern Corn Belt, those numbers do come down some. And some areas are going to see a heavier storm, but the general broader view here is that the areas that need the rain the most aren't really going to see all that much, unfortunately. Finally, let's look at the heat here across the Northeast. This was the forecast for yesterday from the European a week away. And so many folks jumped on this saying this was going to be an extreme heat wave with all-time records set. Well, the European ended up being wrong. It was hot, but it did not hit 105 in Philly. It didn't hit 102 in Boston or 103 in Hartford. It just overestimated the heat. We had more cloud cover and more convection show up. So I caution you, a forecast in a heat wave a week out is not going to always be as accurate as you might expect. Having said that, though, you will be able to see on the map here that the heat is going to build across the plains and the southeast. The numbers that are shown on the map may not end up materializing, but in the areas that have not seen as much rain, where the sun is out, we very much could get close to that. And I'm mainly targeting the central plains and parts of the southeast here during the week next week. Here's a closer view of the East Coast, and you can see today's highs, tomorrow's highs. Today's highs are hot, but tomorrow's highs will be where we peak across Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic area. 99 in Philly, 102 in the district, maybe 103 here in Fairfax County, 100 in Richmond, 97 in Raleigh, and close to 100 around Columbus, Georgia as well. So these are GFS model temperatures. As we get to Sunday, more of the same. Still pretty hot, but again, we're not going to see record-crushing heat. There will probably be a few records set here in the Philly area, the Delaware Valley, and probably in the DMV area, but we are not seeing all-time record heat. If you remember 2012, that was the year of the big derecho. Many of these places were almost 10 degrees hotter, especially back here in the Ohio Valley. So it is hot, and you do want to take that seriously, but it is not all-time record heat. As we get into next week, though, we are definitely aiming towards temperatures close to all-time records. We see this happen every 5 or so summers, but mid-100s are possible over the Midlands of South Carolina up into maybe the Triangle. Now, does it hit 105 in Raleigh and Fayetteville and Richmond for 3 straight days? Pretty unlikely, but I do think we may hit the 100-degree mark for a couple days. It hasn't rained much in a month. Obviously, dry brings fry, is what I've heard from some folks. And that is going to be the case here Wednesday and Thursday of next week before things cool down by the end of the week. Fortunately, we do get that break in the heat coming. Well, I appreciate y'all's time today. I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you for watching. As always, please like this video, share with your friends and family. And if you have not considered subscribing, I urge you to do so. I'm going to try to have another video tomorrow. I am heading out on vacation, but I think this time I'm actually going to try to do some videos while I'm gone. Depending on how the internet works out when I'm in the mountains. But I appreciate y'all's time today. As always, I thank you. I give all the glory and all the honor and all the credit to God who has given me the ability to do this. I'm trying to take this off my screen, but having faith just drives me to help others. I think we all have faith in something. For me, it's faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and what he's done for us. But Hebrews 11:1, the author says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence not seen. And later he says, 11:6 of Hebrews, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. The author here says that it's impossible to please God if you don't believe in him and believe in the works that he's done through his son, Jesus Christ. I think we all have faith in something, right? We believe that we are going to live, we are going to help others around us, we're going to have families, we're going to get paid for the work that we do through our employer, or if we're self-employed, from our customers. We all believe and hope that what we do matters in this time. But I was extremely faithful in other things, not God, until 2012, 2013, when I was able to have my eyes open to God and the miracles and the promises that he has for me and for so many others. And when I did that, I think my hope just exponentially increased. My passion for what I did increased. And this may not be your story, your testimony, but it was for me. Just understanding that what I do on earth matters, but what really matters is the faith and the evidence that's not necessarily there yet, but that heaven awaits those of us who believe, and those of us who choose to believe in God, that his son Jesus rose from the dead so that we could live eternally with him in heaven forever. And that is what drives me to do what I do every day. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. My screen is locked up here, so I hope that this saves, but I will catch up with you guys here soon. Have a wonderful day. Take care.